hello, hello, hey, hello, 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 hello. Okay, so you want to start off with a wig dome cap and a closure pinned down in the front. You'll be needing a weaving needle, rounded one. I don't like to use the straight ones. It's just easier with the rounded. Scissors and weaving thread. And of course the bundles. So the closure, I pinned it down flat, straight in the front, as I'm showing you here. It's right where it's like a little box in the front of the wig dome cap. That's where you will be pinning down the closure to hold it in place and flat on the cap. You will start from the front and you will weave. I sew it to the middle of the closure in the back middle, and then I go back and then I restart from the other side in the front to the back middle. Right here, I went in from the front, from the top, and I realized I made a mistake, so that's why I'm cutting it right there. And you will want to start going from underneath, and then you will continue on weaving it from the top. So I realized that I made a mistake, so I'm gonna show you guys in a minute going from underneath, because you don't want them to see that knot in that thread. So there it goes. I did it from underneath. I passed it through the whole band for the first one, but when you go in for the second time on the top, you're gonna just pass it through the cloth, not the band, not the elastic band, because you want it to stretch. You don't want to sew it in place where it's not stretching. So the first one goes underneath through the band, and then the second, as you go on from there on out, you will pass it through the cloth and not the band. And as you're sewing, you will want it to loop. I use the looping method for each one. So, and you want it to be very close, because you do not want your closure to move or come out or any mishap. So you do the sewing very close, the stitching very close to each other, and each one will be a looping method, which is like a knot every time. And I will be doing that from the front there to the middle. So as you're stitching, You're not going to stitch over the stitches on the you're not going to stitch on the stitches on the wig dome cap. So those 2 stitches that goes across the head, you would stitch over it. Do not stitch on it, because like I said earlier about the elastic band, it's the same with the stitching. You don't want your wig to not be able to stretch on your head. You want it to be able to stretch to go on your head. So you would not be stitching on the stitches on the wig dome cap. You would stitch over it. All right, so as you can see, I stopped in the middle in the back, and then I'm going to go from the other side and do the same exact thing that I did on the other side. Start from underneath, and then moving forward, going through the cloth, passing the needle from the top, and looping method. And the reason why I do it this way is because I just feel like if you go all the way around, it starts to be crowding, and it crunches up the closure, because I've tried it before and it just would not sew on right going all the way around. So it's easier just going in a straight method and doing that little curve instead of doing the whole curve and going all the way around. It just avoids the closure from being like crunchy. I don't know what to call it, but crunchy, like not flat. Okay, so right here I just wanted to show a close-up of the stitching and the last knot right there. You don't have to worry about that, because once you put the bundle on it, you won't see that knot. But I just wanted to give you guys a close-up right there to show how the stitching is how close they're supposed to be. And I'm just gonna make a knot there and end it and start on the bundles. Okay, so for the bundle stitching, the first track would start from the front end of the closure, and you would carry it around to the back, to the other front of the closure. The reason why you'll be doing it this way is because you don't want your tracks to be showing in the front or on the side or wherever. You know, when your hair is blowing in the wind, you just want it to blow and not have any issues with your tracks showing. So you will pass the first stitch through the band from the bottom, and then moving forward you would do it through the cloth like we did the closure. And for the first track, I usually put 2 tracks because I don't like the back to be, you know, too full with hair. So I start off with 2 tracks, and then the second track I just carry on with 1 track. And also, these stitches for the bundles is going to be, a little bit bigger. As long as you're doing the looping method, the thread should not be falling out. Once you do the looping method for every stitch, the thread should not be falling out. And I get this done within like an hour and a half. It doesn't take me that long. The longest part is doing the closure because you're doing the stitching so close and you don't want the closure to be crunchy. Is my word of the day, crunchy. Okay. So you want the stitching to be close for the closure, but for the bundles it can be don't make it like extremely big where like you can fit your hand through it, but you can make it a little bit with a little bit more space through the stitching because the looping method secures it down. Okay, so when you're ending it at the other front end, you're just going to pass it through the cloth. You're not going to pass the last stitching through the band just because it's a little bit more difficult. If you want to, you can, but tying it from underneath, it's a little bit more difficult doing it that way. So I just do it from the top through the cloth, and it's already secure from the beginning. Right here, I did a couple of stitchings already, and I'm showing you that I had did another second track from the first one I just showed you, and then now I'm doing it going across straight from the head. So I'll be starting like a quarter from the closure because you don't want it to continue going all the way around. You want you want to fill out the back. So you do it starting from a quarter away from the closure, and you do a couple of them that way, and then you'll do one from the closure, which you'll see in a few minutes. So now I am just continuing on with the bundles because I've been cutting through it, but I really don't like cutting through it. So if you're going to loop the bundle around, make sure that it's just laying completely flat on the wig cap and it's not like lumping up in the front. You do not want the hair to lump up. It's just not a good look. So this track here, I skipped a couple of lines depending on how your client or how you like to wear your hair. If they like the hair very full, you would do it like an inch apart. If they don't like it too full, I would say like about like 180, not 200%, like 180. This wig is like a 180%. So I do an inch to the middle, an inch apart to the middle, and then I skip like almost like 2 or 3 inches, and then I continue on doing it an inch apart, and this avoids the fullness of it being like 200%. If you want it 150%, I would say do it like 2 inches apart, the tracks, 2 inches each apart. That's how I prefer my wigs, 2 inches apart. But my cousin had a lot of hair, and she didn't want it too full, but she didn't want it too thin. So that's why I did that little gap in the middle, which you will not see. No worries. You will not see that gap. And she was a little bit worried after I was done, but I had to reassure her, like, no one's going to see it. Trust me. Like, the hair is so thick that it will cover. Okay, so right here, I've angled the camera a little bit higher so you can see the top, how exactly I'm doing it. Excuse the mess and the toys. Yeah, my kids are like messy. But yeah, I angle the camera upwards so that you can see that I'm going in like a half moon shape. And then I motioned earlier that I will be going straight across afterwards to fill out the top, because you can't keep going in that half moon shape. Eventually, it's not going to be enough space to keep going in that motion. So then you have to go straight across in like a croissant pattern. Okay, so for the last track, you want it to be lined up with the closure side to side. You don't want any spaces between them, and you're going to sew it as close and tight as possible next to the closure, so that it just looks as one. And you'll see that as soon as I'm done with this stitching.